So, I found this article on one of the Lovecraft Facebook pages. Someone linked that and I read through it, and I felt I had to step in here and just give my 2 cents on this matter. The gist of the article is that Lovecraft needs to be rewritten and reclaiming the mythos. Okay. Basically, it's the same SJW bullshit that has infected this literary style. I made a video about that before, and now I have to do it again because this shit just really brings my piss to a boil. First of all, what's with the headline? Rewriting H.P. Lovecraft, reclaiming the mythos. Okay, rewriting Lovecraft. That's kind of obvious from what that's implying, right? It's that Lovecraft needs to be rewritten for the new era we're living in.
Because it's 2015.
It's funny because I don't see this sort of concept being applied to other literary styles, or rather other authors. I mean, is there any movement saying that we need to rewrite Jane Austen? Is there a movement to rewrite Shakespeare? Is there a movement to rewrite, Sherlock Holmes? No, there isn't. It's only Lovecraft that has been attacked like this, as far as I can see. Because, okay, to be fair, I only really pay attention to Lovecraft. But, I mean, this is coming up more and more often, that it needs to be revised. And it really makes me think of communist Russia, when inconvenient things from the past, sort of news clippings, photographs from the past, need to be rewritten or edited to fit the current situation in the Soviet climate. And then the second part here, I know I'm dwelling on the headline, but this is really something that's made me scratch my head. Reclaiming the mythos. Okay? Reclaiming. What the hell? What do you mean reclaiming? When you say reclaiming, you're implying that you had ownership to this mythos to begin with. And the you in this situation is, of course, this new era of leftist science fiction, weird fiction writers who have a hard-on for revising everything to fit the current socio-political climate. So now they want to reclaim it, but that implies that they had it to begin with. No. Lovecraft wrote this mythos first and foremost for himself. He said even that if he was never read by anyone, he would still write. He did this for himself. It was like catharsis. And yet these arrogant fucks come here and say, no, we gotta reclaim it and we gotta rewrite it because it's the current year. Generating blog content is all about capitalizing on trends, capturing the zeitgeist, joining the conversation. Yeah, that's true. And if there's one conversation that's dominated science fiction and fantasy circles in 2016, it has been the legacy of Lovecraft. Well, to be honest, that's been going on for a few years now, from what I've read. If you go to Google News and you just type in Lovecraft, you're going to see articles bitching about his racism going back to 2012 or so even. Once considered 2-bit pulp writer, later revered as a literary legend. Yeah, that's true. And his mouth was blah blah blah. Have troubling baggage. Okay, so troubling baggage is basically the buzzword for problematic. Problematic is like a favorite word amongst these people. Everything is problematic. Oh, that needs to be edited. It's problematic. A streak of virulent racism that cannot be excused as a symptom of the age in which he wrote. Actually, yes, it can be. To designate Lovecraft as this insane racist is very superficial. Yeah, he was racist, but you have to look at the man himself, just take it on face value. If you know anything about Lovecraft, if you've read S.C. Joshi's I Am Providence books about the type of person he was, you would realize that it's not just, he hates blacks, because, it paints him out to be like some KKK guy, and that is really not an accurate way to summarize this guy. He was a misanthropic soul. He really just hated everyone, and that sort of compounded with his dislike of foreigners. It wasn't even just racism. He spoke negatively of Poles, Russians, Swedes, Italians. These people are white, okay? So basically this is an interview with 3 authors of these 3 books. I have never heard of them before. This one I kind of remember, this Dream Quest of Velet Bow. Okay, here is this Ruthana person. I do not, well, obviously they're bitching about race here. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they look like. That at yet as a bone deep level, I recognize that he described people like me, real people in real places, in the exact terms he used for deep ones and the Watleys. I'm one of his monsters. Okay, he thought I was a vile existential threat to everything he held dear. Okay, then we move on to this other person. This is basically the same issue. Kidge. Okay, that's an interesting name, I suppose. Sounds like a Star Wars character, but anyway. Lovecraft always bugged me because he had no woman. Zero. In the entire Dream Quest, he mentions females, I think once. A terrified farmer's wife in a sentence somewhere. Okay, fine. That said so much about he perceived the world. He lived in our world where one assumes the population was half female. Even then, yes, that's true. Yet we are invisible to him. Okay, here's the thing. If you have read Lovecraft over and over again like I have, and you've read Joshi's analysis of him, you would realize that Lovecraft wrote in a autobiographical way. He always wrote as if he he gave his characters many traits like him. So I'm reading here from the short story He. Lovecraft wrote this when he was exploring New York. My coming to New York has been a mistake. The disillusion had been gradual, but success and happiness were not to be. So instead of the poems I hoped for, there came only a shuddering blankness and ineffable loneliness. I ceased to sleep comfortably, though something of resigned tranquility came back as I gradually formed the habit of keeping off the streets by day and venturing abroad only at night. With this mode of relief I even wrote a few poems, and still refrained from going home to my people lest I seemed to crawl back ignobly in defeat. This kept my soul alive and gave me a few of those dreams and visions for which the poet far within me cried out. This is just one example. Some of the other stories where you can really pick up on that this is him writing about himself are The Tomb, The Outsider, The Descendant, Azathoth, Cool Air, The Unnameable, and Horror Red Hook. All of these stories have very clear, obvious autobiographical parts in them, and the point I'm trying to make here regarding these two idiots here who are writing here that, oh well, Lovecraft is not really for me. Lovecraft's mythos was for himself first and foremost. It always was, and that was always his target. His target audience was basically himself. So yes, there are no women in Lovecraft because all his characters are basically middle class, educated, either officially or unofficially by themselves. Yes, they're white because he was white. He wrote about himself, okay? So now you're going to come and complain that there's no woman protagonist, there's no black protagonist, there's no transsexual protagonist. Yes, I even heard someone complaining about that issue. There was just no way. I mean, just read on here. There was no way I could visualize Randolph Carter as anything but a man. Well, for fuck's sake, of course not. His name is Randolph fucking Carter. Randolph, that's a man's name, you idiot. I mean, and Randolph Carter is a prime example of Lovecraft inserting himself into his own literature. How do you separate the baked-in racism? Okay, how many of these stories were actually racist? Now, obviously you have the Red Hook example. How many of his other stories are actually racist? You know, besides mentioning occasionally how he felt uncomfortable around non-people like him. How many? The answer is really none. And we come back to this part here further in the article. The mythos, on the other hand, deserves not redemption but reclaiming. You don't get to reclaim it. As I pointed before, that is his. That is his mythos. These fucks probably are the types that will bitch about cultural appropriation, but they have no problem doing this here. Because, I mean, it seems like the same thing to me. I mean, I have nothing wrong with cultural appropriation, really. I think that's a ridiculous concept. And I would never say to Ruthana, Cass, or Kidge that you cannot write a Lovecraftian story. But what I do object to is a big company like Barnes & Noble basically giving these assholes a hand job here and saying, oh wow, how progressive we are. If you read on a bit further in this article, they're talking about redemption, how you can be a bigot and then you can stop being a bigot, and then it doesn't change the fact that you were a bigot. So basically you have these very, very holier than thou people who are extremely indignant that Lovecraft was not what they are. Okay, and he even said so. They're complaining Randolph Carter doesn't have tits. Okay, now we come to the shadow over Innsmouth. I didn't even know this was in this article. I'm actually just reading it as I go. But look here, they're drawing this one up as an example. It opens by about the government raiding Innsmouth and putting the inhabitants in concentration camps. The narrator clearly thinks that this is a good thing. Well, yes, they are. That is a good thing. Yes, that fucking is a good thing. These people are basically equating Jews, Poles, homosexuals, Slavs with deep ones. Okay, because those are the people that were put into concentration camps in Germany. I'm sure, of course, they're referencing Germany. They will never mention the concentration camps when they was erected by Stalin. Forget about that. Well, yeah, it's a fucking good thing. If you have masses of deep ones that are actively working to, bring down the fall of humanity, black and white, man and woman, which they were, you do something about it. You stop them and you raid the fuck out of them. You put them in camps. Okay, if you don't lock up your weird neighbors with funny religions, I'm sure that's about Islam. Well, yeah, if that is a threat, then you have to tackle it. That is just how it is. It's not like we can all hold hands, sing kumbaya, and everything's going to be alright. And he hears about resentful grocery clerk and the town drunk, Zadok Allen, about the... I can't pronounce that word. Miscegenation. You know what I mean, sorry. And human sacrifice and strange religious customs. Well, just over here, you're saying it's not nice to lock up your neighbors who have weird religions, quote unquote. And here, they're like, oh, well, it's just human sacrifice. But that's okay. We gotta tolerate. We have to tolerate their customs, The thing is, they're taking something that is not meant for them, okay? Lovecraft was never meant for them. I mean, even today, Lovecraft is popular, yes. You can go into any bookstore and you can find a nice big anthology. But Lovecraft is still not that popular. Okay, let's be realistic here. If you look at horror today, I'm talking about film, literature, everything. We see a lot of vampire stuff. We see a lot of regular monsters. We see a lot of weird monsters, such as I recently bought a book called The Hatching about the spider apocalypse. Zombies, of course, that's a big one. Alien invasions, but not like the alien invasion like the Migo. We're talking about Independence Day stuff. None of that is Lovecraftian, but that is the most popular stuff. So even in today's climate, Lovecraft is not popular, and usually when he is evoked, they're just going to use some tentacles. They'll stick in some tentacles. Oh my god, look how Lovecraftian it is, and that seems to be good enough. Let's just do this final point because I think it's relevant. Here they're talking about imagining the monsters. Okay, too vile to exist. Okay, so obviously if you're reading Lovecraft and you think about monsters too vile to exist, you're going to think of like the Watley spawn of Yog-Sothoth. You're going to think about Dagon or something like that. But here they're going to carry on saying many of the criminals who perpetrate the stomach-churning crimes are astoundingly normal. Okay, so now we're going to talk about normal. What is normal? And when they say normal, they're talking about man and woman, humans. You could spend 10 years hanging out with them and not realize that they go home and beat the shit out of their children. That's not what Lovecraft is about, okay? It's not like you can equate some entity that is going to wipe out humanity just by accident because, oops, humanity got in the way. Oh, well, whatever, because we are that weak in a Lovecraft universe. But now we're talking about, wow, calm down. Humans are also shit. Oh my god, he's beating his children for 10 years. That is just the same. Okay, so humans are just as bad. So we have to address that in our new Lovecraftian fiction. Get fucked. Just as a conclusion, I'm going to say I will never say that these people cannot write Lovecraftian fiction. I will never say that they should not be featured on Barnes & Noble like this. Barnes & Noble can feature whomever they want. You know, if you want to know about Lovecraft, do not pick it up from these pop culture websites where progressives and the perpetually offended congregate and fester. If you want to know about Lovecraft, read I Am Providence by S.T. Joshi. Actually, no, wait, that is maybe a bad choice because it's an extremely long book and Joshi does go into massive details, but there are many other books you can pick up and just really get to know what Lovecraft is about. The first one I would say is Lovecraft Against the World, Against Life by Michel Houellebecq. The other one would be The Call of Cthulhu and Other Weird Tales. I think that's the Penguin edition. Joshi does quite a few pages intro about what Lovecraft is about. In general, it's a good book to own. Just forget this bullshit. It is not applicable to real Lovecraftians. I'm sorry, it's just not. Alright, thank you for listening.